Okay, so this is the February 2023 koha-US Web Dev SIG. Who has stuff to talk about?
Well, I did something kind of on the fly that I can share,
Go for it.
and I'll embiggen my screen. I'll bump it up to 150%, just for the sake of anybody that might feel like they need to change their YouTube settings to see what we're typing. So we have a library in Winchester, Kansas, that they had a pipe break over the Christmas holidays, and they just got everything sorted out to where they can get their insurance company in there to fix things, but they need to close for a month. And one of the problems we have, I was going to look up the title. One of the problems we have with the courier is that if you ship something to a library that's closed, the courier will hold it. And if they hold it for like a month, the longer they hold it, the less the chance that the item will actually make it to its destination, the more things that can go wrong. So what I try to do is to run a report every day that says these are the things that are on hold that haven't been shipped yet to that library, and then I suspend them. But then it occurred to me that I could probably find a better way to do this. So I'm going to try and place a hold on this. And I'm logged in at Neckles. I'm logged in at Neckles, and the library that's closed is Winchester. And so my hold starts on date is blank. But if I change it to Winchester, it populates that with the day before they reopen. So that way, none of those holds will be in effect until the day they reopen. And it's set by default, so if you're logged in as Winchester, it fills that in automatically. And if we change it back, that's the one thing, yeah, if we change it back, then it blanks it out. So that was something I did pretty quickly with jQuery. The thing that makes it a little bit tricky is that the flat picker doesn't like dates as a string of text. It wants the date as an object. So you have to convert the date into a variable and then plug the variable in there instead of just with the old date picker, you could just put a string of text in there. And so that was my biggest stumbling block with it, was trying to figure out that, that was something that had to be done, as the date had to be converted into a variable. But I like this. I'm going to do it when we do our school closures. I kind of do the same thing all summer long, where somebody puts a hold to be picked up at the school closure a couple times a week, I'll run a report and just suspend them. But now I can just use this, and then that way none of those holds will start until the day before school starts. So
Usually I just like turn them off as a pickup location entirely when they close, but this is a nicer, better service, I would say.
Well, the thing about turning them off as a pickup location, if you set that library so that it's no longer a pickup location, if a patron that has that as their home library places a request, it's just going to send it to the whatever library is in that dropdown. That's my experience, is if they don't have a home library, if that home library is no longer a pickup location, it'll just go alphabetically to the top of the list of libraries. And Atchison doesn't like that. Atchison doesn't like it when they get all these things for students at the Prairie Hills School District over the summer. So I have some other code that I use to try and direct those, that I was using to try to direct those to other libraries. So I had some code that when you in the OPAC, if your home library was like Sabetha Middle School, for the course of the summer, it would try to send those to Sabetha Public Library, the Mary Cotton Library in Sabetha. But this will just be a lot easier. It'll just, kind of keep those holds into the future so that we don't have to worry about it until then. So that's all I got.
I was just poking at that. You're right. I've got a library that's closed right now, and their pickup location defaulted to my first library alphabetically.
Yeah. And patrons
That's
won't even notice that if they're in the OPAC. They won't even notice that. They'll just do it like they always do it, and then all their things go to a library that's, you know, when they go to Atchison and the school district's closed, that's like a 45-mile drive. So.
I made a note. I got to work on that.
Well, it's there
What
for you to. It's there for you to take. You can log in and grab it.
I might do that.
And Christopher and I might be doing a video on it in a couple of weeks. Maybe this week. I'm not sure. I don't know what's going on.
Anybody else got anything cool or problems they want to talk about? I mean, I can show off things I've been poking at that are not complete, because that's everything around here. Around here, not around here, but like my desk vicinity. I start things and they get distracted by other things, and there's just shiny things. And let me figure out where my windows went. So I haven't. Last month I talked about playing with the kids OPAC and Lucas, and I talked about it a little bit. I started working on the results page. Like, I got the home page, and we talked about it internally and made a few tweaks. I added the footer bar down here just so that there's a link to the full catalog, and then our usual standard footer stuff. And then in the search results, I started working on that, but I haven't gotten it like how I want it yet. But I've been playing with it a little bit more. I don't know if I changed the font last time before or not, but I found this dyslexic font that looked I thought it looked pretty nice in the kids catalog, which is a Google font. So I just imported that. And I added some stuff like up at the top. I added a start over button. We're still trying to really aim it towards little kids, so I want to like cut down on the amount of text. But that's as far as I've gotten with this, and I don't think I've touched it in like 3 weeks.
I've been playing around with it using your code, and you know, changed a few things out. But one thing I did notice is, so if the patron does decide to place a hold, they can do all of that, but then they're logged in and there's no apparent way to log out.
Right.
And they don't really know they're logged in until, like, I didn't really even think about it until I got back to the main page, and then I saw down at the bottom that it had you have this many checkouts and this many holds and whatever.
Yeah, this account summary thing. Yeah.
And so there needs to be some way for them to log out. So that was one thing I came across.
Yeah, and like if you actually go to these pages, which it discourages you, but you can still go there, and
right.
It looks okay. But yeah, that's something that we discussed internally. Like, do we even want that placehold ability? Like, who's using this and where are they using it?
Right.
Is it going to be just on a kiosk in the library, so they don't really need, they're just looking at the catalog to see things that they can pull? So there's some different approaches I think you could take with it.
I also noticed that I was poking around in the results, and like the publisher has on the detail page, the publisher has a hyperlink. And
That one.
maybe you're not displaying
Like this right here.
there. And so if you had somebody that was like, you know, HarperCollins or something, I clicked on it and then I got adult materials along with the regular. So that was another thing I came across.
So when we first started talking about this, and Lucas can chime in, I think this sort of stuff that we're talking about, we should be adding as issues on the GitHub for the plugin, right? And then Lucas can take a look and address those.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to do that. What do I do in order to report these?
Do you have a GitHub account?
I do. I don't hardly ever go into it, but I know I have one.
This is an awesome time for a lesson on how to do that.
Yay.
Does somebody want to show how to do that?
It's pretty easy. I can show.
Okay.
So step one is you do have to have a GitHub account. And then let's see, you'll have to find the repository, which is going to be, you can just search on Google for Bywater Solutions or Bywater Solutions. I think it's just called Children's Plugin. And when you're here, this is always tricky because there's on the very top, there's an issues button. It's not that one, but it's this line down here.
Okay.
And there's issues. And Barbara, I think we talked about saving continues buttons a couple weeks ago.
Right.
That issue. And you just go here, new issue, describe your issue,
Okay.
and submit.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I like what Jason's done so much that I'm going to steal everything and put it in the plugin when I get time.
Can I show off what I've done with mine? It's Jason's theme, but just to put it out there.
Go for it.
Let's see. Give me just a sec. So I used his stuff. Our staff wanted some canned searches for the levels of juvenile chapter books that we have. So we've got early chapter, and tween fiction. And so they wanted a way for the kids to get to historical fiction or fantasy fiction or whatever. So we added some stuff. And other than that, it's basically like Jason's. And I just love what you did, Jason. So I think it'll be really cool when I showed it to the youth staff, they were really, really excited. So.
Yeah, and I've got I took this to one of our internal meetings, and I've got a list from our youth services consultant about like what else we can do to make it more kid friendly. So it's on my more immediate to-do list than other things, but it's still kind of hanging out there. Something that distracted me from that I can also share. So there's a bug to suspend. Let me find the bug so that's part of the conversation. Suspend club holds enrollments. So we use this a lot for like large lists of patron holds. And I put this bug in a couple years ago. And I'll put it in the chat, which is the idea that whenever somebody is in a club, it would be nice if we could suspend their club enrollment. Like if they're going on vacation, we don't want them to get all those holds that they're in for clubs. And then when they come back, unsuspend that. Since it doesn't have any movement, I was poking at ways to sort of accomplish that on my own. So I came up with a report. Something that the club stuff does really well is keeps track of that sort of thing. So when you enroll and unenroll, it keeps track of past enrollments, basically. So I wrote a report to find the past enrollments for someone, a patron. It pulls the date and then it makes this button that doesn't actually do anything in the report. But if I pull it over to a patron account, what I'm working on. Oh yeah, I never fixed the confetti on this. The idea is to put that table here so that then those buttons are there and they are functional. And I had it working. Yeah, it just takes a long time to load because of what I've done. So it's not like optimal yet, but it puts that report information here, and then like you can click the re-enroll, it activates the right script, and then part of the problem is it doesn't reload unless you load the page and then click on the tab because of the way I'm doing it. So that's the other thing I've been poking at recently as a sort of workaround for the fact that they can't. Because right now they're like, if somebody goes on vacation, they have to keep track of that whole list and go in there and put them on one by one. And the clubs are not too user friendly because it's 2 clicks for every enrollment anyway. So I was trying to at least alleviate some of that pain. So it's sort of working, but not there yet.
So you're using a report to build that little table?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
probably the issue is the report's taking a long time to run when you.
It's that.
It's
and
one
then,
of the
like,
issues, yeah.
Like it's to get things into those tabs. So you can see that it's loading from an Ajax call. So like if I just wanted to append to that tab, I have to wait for the Ajax call to come through.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing with this summary thing up here, and that's why it takes a minute to load too, because it waits for the table to load after every check-in and then summarizes it. It is slower on my test server than it is on my live server, so that's something else. But the actual code isn't pulled up. What do you think I called that? Hello? Yeah. So I'm doing it in a once, because if you don't do it once, it does it over and over again. After the Ajax is stopped, I'm appending it to that tab, which is the only way I found to do it. I tried to do it on the Ajax complete, and then it just keeps going and going and appending and probably crashing something somewhere because it's running a report over and over again. And then if I do it in just the ready, it doesn't work because there's nothing in that tab yet for it to append to. So I'm also trying to think of like other ways. Like it doesn't have to happen within that tab. I could just have a button that calls it, and then they could re-enroll them one by one.
So sorry.
I was going to say, so ideally what you really want is a feature in the clubs that shows like former enrollments, former club enrollments, and gives you an option to re-enroll Maybe
Basically,
with
yeah.
a system preference that says, clubs enrolled in the last, 90 days or 180 days or something like that. That would be ideal if it was just part of Koha to say these are the former clubs and click
Right.
this button to re-enroll.
And that's kind of what the ticket was starting out as. Like, I want to suspend my enrollment in a club, and then when I'm ready, re-enroll into it. But I think it would take
Yeah.
a hefty development to get that functionality working, probably. And I hear about this every once in a while, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try and fix it. But I don't think it's that big a deal. I don't have that many people going on vacation that are in tons of clubs. So it was just something that like distracted me away from other things. So I was playing with it. And the third thing I'm playing with is patron cards. Because I have a library that want small batches of cards. And so I was trying to generate barcodes in Excel and do a mail merge and Word, and that's my today headache. Because it's not working. And I don't know why. But that's not really web Debbie. So I'll open the floor back up to other people. Have anything new? Do you do cards? Do you guys print your own cards, or do you go through a company?
Nichols, some of our libraries print their own like bespoke cards, but most of our libraries we buy on their behalf. I guess that's an old one. I don't have one of the new ones. We buy those. They can't see it because it's green background, but we buy them in bulk, and then libraries just contact us. I think we usually buy like 4,000 or 5,000 at a time, and then libraries, our members will call us and say, could we get like 500 library cards?
So you don't have like individual like prefixing for each library?
No, it would have been awesome if back in 2008 somebody had said each library should have their own prefix. That would have been great, but nobody did that. And so some of the libraries like Leavenworth, all of their cards that they issue, but they print their own. They have their own. They have a bespoke, ILEA starts as each of their cards, and Holton has their own card, and Ottawa has their own card. There are a bunch of them that have their own cards, and those they have their own prefix. But the ones that Nichols orders on behalf of the entire consortium all start with 1003, I think. Which it would be nice if each library had their own prefix, but we don't.
For us, it's the problem for my really little ones, because like the company we go through, their minimum quantity is 250, and they charge like $1 a card for 250. The library I'm working on right now probably has 100 people in town. So like I really don't want to have them pay that much for that small amount of cards. So I'm trying to do it myself, which I found this like, it's like LaserJet printable PVC. It's a little thinner than our regular cards, but I think it'll work. So it's just getting the barcodes generated, and I figured out the checksum math in Excel. So all I'm really fighting with right now is the mail merge, because it's not doing things in order and it's mixing things up.
Our school district, we have a formula for like part of the last name, part of the first name, and then the year that they're scheduled to graduate and they don't actually, those students, they don't use cards. But everybody knows based on the formula what their number is. And then the elementary school, the librarians will use the card creator tool to print like a sheet, and they have it in the notebook. And when Mrs. Jones's class comes in, they just flip to that sheet. But that would be another option, is for those small libraries, is to get like a driver's license laminator and use the the built-in card creator. That way you could give them an individualized prefix on their cards. But that's the way we do it, is we just don't have. And we also have, you know, a situation where we have the libraries, particularly up in Wyandotte County and Leavenworth County, that they're so close that it's really, you know, so many people move from Baser to Tonganoxie to Lansing to Bonner Springs. There's so much intermixing of those people that you can get your card in Lansing, but, you know, maybe a year later you're living in Leavenworth, and a year later you're living in Bonner Springs, and a year later you're living in Tonganoxie, and they don't make those people get a new card every time they switch libraries. So it's really not that big of a deal for us if the libraries don't have their own individual prefixes. So that might be an option you think of, is, you know, just create a generic seek and find card that you can buy on behalf of those really small institutions. I think we charge 18 cents for cards to our members. So
Yeah, I think for these printable sheets, I got it down to like 32, which is what the bigger ones are paying when they're ordering like 1,000 at a time. So my current workaround, I guess.
yeah, I don't know where we order from, because I'm not the one that does that ordering. I think Jesse is, but I think that's what we charge our members, is 18 cents a card, but we might also be subsidizing that. I'm not sure.
We ran into trouble with the patron card creator in Koha, and ended up that the text wrapping was causing problems, and making it impossible to download the PDFs. So we've kind of run into that problem with the card creator. But so it works if it's got short names or short addresses on it, but anything long, it just doesn't work right.
And I haven't tried that, like the built-in stuff at all.
Yeah, one of the other issues with the card creator is one of our libraries, and I don't know why they do this, they were entering, if the card number has letters in it, alphabetical characters in it, barcode 3 of 9 doesn't acknowledge small lowercase letters. So if you have card numbers that have lowercase letters in them, the card creator will not print those in barcode 3 of 9. You got to know which font you want to use when you decide how to do things, and you've got to make sure that the card numbers you enter don't have anything you want as a barcode. I recommend. I think I have some jQuery that works on those fields that, you know, if somebody tries to enter lowercase in a library card or an item barcode field, it will automatically capitalize them before the save. So I was able to steer that back around to web dev, you know, as using jQuery to capitalize things.
Way to go. I'm looking at my scraps of paper. I don't think I have anything else fun or exciting to talk about. That's web devy at least. So, and anything else? Any other discussions, things people want to talk about, questions you have?
This will probably be a short answer, but I was looking up, or George and Christopher they were talking about ILL, temporary records for ILLs, in one of their recent videos, and that's what we've done, that same process for a long time. But it's kind of a problem for patrons with circ history, because anytime you delete an item, it deletes it out of the circ history. And so there's a bug for that, but it kind of went stale about 6.5 years ago and hasn't really gone anywhere. So
Do you have a bug number?
yeah, it's in the chat. It's number 8483. It looks like there was a a patch for it, but there were some problems with the patch.
There's also been discussion about merging the tables, so like merging items with deleted items. And I wonder if that would like resolve this, because it's not moving it to a different table, so it'll still be there. But I don't know. I haven't looked at that either.
Yeah, I don't know what the status of that is. But the idea is that instead of, right now when you delete something, it moves from items to deleted items or biblio to deleted biblio. And the idea of the patch, and I don't remember what the bug number is instead of moving it to a separate table, it would just flag it. There'd be a new field in that table that would say deleted in all of the tables where there's a corresponding deleted table. And I think that would solve a lot of the problems, because that's what happens when you move those things from one table to another, is it breaks the connection. So I don't know. I have libraries that have 3 different strategies for how they handle ILLs. The really little libraries, like and Barbara just put that bug number in the chat box for the deleted tables, right? Yeah. I have libraries that have 3 different ways of handling ILLs within ShareIt in Kansas, and one of the simplest way is, I have a library that only does like 4 or 5 a year, and they just write them down in a notebook. They don't even add them to Koha. But I have another library that what they do is they just have book wraps that have a barcode number on them. And so when an ILL comes in, they just put the book wrap on it, and you've checked out ILL number 20 or ILL number 2 or ILL number 36. And so they never, that speeds up the process because they don't have to add all that information to Koha. They just know that the patron's checking out an ILL. And so there isn't, and then they can look in their history and they see, I checked out an ILL book. It doesn't say what it is. But then I do have a lot of libraries that, their strategy is they never delete the ILL. So we've got all these ILLs, records that don't have items on them anymore, essentially. Well, they have to leave the item there, because if we have a biblio with no items that's more than 2 weeks old, it gets deleted. We have a cron running that does that. So.
And most of our libraries do the third option that you mentioned, but we try to keep the temporary records, the fast add records, to a minimum, and so we tell them to always delete them. So that's kind of where we're running into the problem.
I tell them that too.
Some of them just don't. Yeah,
they just don't, because the patron, well, then they won't know what they checked out. How long does everybody keep their circulation history? We keep ours for 13 months. So there's never any data in Koha. There's never any reading history more than 13 months old in our system.
I don't want to talk about it.
There are a couple of people that have been really, praising the pseudonymization and, the anonymization features. But, that's one thing I really like about just deleting all the history more than a certain length of time old, is because it's the ultimate form of anonymization, is just to not have the data anymore. So there's no way that you can look up the history of something more than 13 months old, really. So.
we still allow people to save either forever for 3 years or to delete it immediately, but we do have the default is to not save history. So if they want to save, they have to manually change that for newer patrons, at least.
Yeah, and we've talked about flipping that, but we're the other way around at this point. It's a opt out, not opt in, whichever way that goes. But like we keep it unless, and then it's on the patron to go in and say, don't keep it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the way we're set up too, is it's by deep. Well, I take that back, except for our community college member, they're set up so that when their patrons are added, their default privacy is set to never. But everybody else, it's always been set to forever. But forever here only means 13 months because, you know, the history gets deleted.
It's nice in some ways to have it, the not saving it by default, but at the same time, there's a lot of librarians and patrons that continue to complain about that, even though it was more than 3 years ago that we changed that. So it's a trade-off.
And I think that's, you know, there are so many things that are going on here in Neckles that I wish I could just go back to 2008 and say to people, don't make that decision. You know, don't choose to do it. But this is one I like, you know, there's 13 months. I think it's always been that way here. So there was never a point where we had to tell people that there was going to be a change. It's just always been no history more than 13 months old, or at least long enough ago that nobody remembers that it was different. I guess it's been like 14 years, but you know, another bad choice that was made in 2008 was most of our barcode numbers for items start with 000. So any export into any export into Excel, you lose those first 3 digits. You've got to come up with a strategy to keep those when you're outputting reports or any data into something else. It was just a terrible choice, but there's a lot of weird choices that were made that you know, and most of them were made by benefit of the fact that nobody knew what was going to happen back in 2008. But I'm sure that there are people, you know, when we migrated Valnet in 2012 that are thinking, why the hell did we do that? And it seems like a good idea at the time, probably.
Well, I think we got off web dev again, but
Yeah, we
that's
did.
okay. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about or questions anybody has? If not, we can wrap it up. I'm hearing lots of crickets. All right, well, I guess we'll call it then. Thanks everybody, and we'll see y'all next month.
See y'all later.
Bye.